Welcome to the Really Useful Podcast. It's the podcast for technophobes. My name is Christian Crawley, and with me this week is Megan Ellis. Hello, Megan.
Hello, Christian.
Hello. Now, the interesting thing to our listener, maybe slightly interesting, is that we do have a lot of writers from around the world at MakeUseOf.com. And what I try to do with the Really Useful Podcast is get a good mix of writers from different parts of the world. Now, that means recording at different times. So sometimes I might have to record on an evening in order to speak to someone in the United States. If it's someone in the UK, then we kind of choose the same time and go with that. I thought that because Megan's in South Africa, we're on the same time zone. So I thought maybe this would be a good way to get someone else on the same time zone. But it turns out that although we're in the same time zone, we're not actually on the same time, which is thanks to daylight saving time. We're like, are we 2 hours out?
Yeah, we're technically in GMT +2.
Yeah.
So yeah. We're 2 hours apart.
Yeah, didn't foresee that one, did I? So it's my own fault. I should have looked into it further. But delighted to have you on this week's show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, on this week's Really Useful Podcast, Megan and I will be discussing how to make old games and software run on Windows 10. How Prime Amazon members can now pick their Prime Day, or how Prime members can now pick their Amazon Day. Some of the best tools that you can use to watch TV on your computer. We're also going to be having a look at some mobile phone related topics, specifically the Galaxy S10 launch from Samsung, and a chat about why phones have a shorter battery life, or don't seem to have increased their battery life, and anything else that sort of comes along from discussing those topics, and a brief chat about some things that you can do with a Raspberry Pi, which is a very simple little computer that does some quite cool things. We're going to kick off with ways to make old games and software run on Windows 10. Windows 10 has been out since 2014?
I think so. It feels like a long time.
It does feel like a long time. You're right. But it's here, and obviously it's here to stay. Microsoft is saying that there's no more Windows versions. They're calling everything Windows 10. How long that marketing decision lasts for is another matter entirely. And there's always this thing when you move to a new operating system where you find that something won't work anymore. Is there anything you've encountered recently that you thought might work in Windows 10 but won't, Megan?
Not anything I've tried recently, but I do remember struggling. I wanted to play some Donkey Kong and that type of thing on Windows 10 just to try it out, get some nostalgia. But yeah, some of those things don't work, especially the much like really old games. Even sometimes Windows XP stuff struggles a bit.
Yeah. It's a common problem. We've got this vast history of games and software that we've collected over the years, and occasionally it might be nice to go back and try something out, or to find an old file that you want to access. Just maybe it's it might be something that you've written on a different format, or whatever, that Word doesn't open so well, or it might just be a game. I've got loads of old games that I want to play and really can't unless I buy them again from Good Old Games, from GOG.com, which is a bit of a pain. Unless I'm prepared to go through one of these methods. There's a few different ways you can get old games and programs to run on Windows 10, as compiled by fellow podcast host Gavin Phillips at MakeUseOf.com. He's described ways that you can, and of course everything that we talk about in this week's show will be available in the show notes. You can check the links out below. Run the game as administrator, or run the software as administrator. Use Windows built-in program compatibility troubleshooter is another option. These are both things that you'll find by right-clicking on the piece of software in question. The program compatibility feature is good, but it doesn't always work, unfortunately. There's manual compatibility settings that you can also set, which this is things like setting the right screen resolution, because it can be issues with your display that's causing a game to not work, or a piece of software to not work. Driver enforcement is a big deal in modern versions of Windows, and it's something that didn't exist in previous versions of Windows. So you can use the startup settings in Windows 10 to get around driver enforcement. You can also, and this is my preferred option, use a virtual machine. A virtual machine is free to download the software from VirtualBox. There's also a free version of VMware that you can download. And if you've got an old version of your operating system disk, you can simply install that within your current operating system. If it's a DOS game or DOS application, then you can use DOSBox. Megan, are you familiar with any of these tools?
Definitely the first 3 or 4. But I haven't tried DOSBox or the virtual machine. I think I've tried to run a virtual machine before on VMware Player, but I didn't have an old disk. Those are back at my childhood home, so unfortunately didn't have any licenses to try to run an old Windows XP.
Yeah, that is a key aspect of running a virtual machine is to have the
to have the license,
copy of the operating system and a license. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think I'm more used to on Android when you run a virtual phone, because so much of the stuff is open source. You can just simulate an OS, whereas I remembered after Windows 10 getting it free and all that, like it's a flash from the past to suddenly see Windows XP, where's your license? Like, oh, that thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think the problem with the compatibility feature is that it can fail so often, which is why I prefer the virtual machine. But it really depends on what's easiest for the piece of software that you're trying to run. So if you are looking for a way to get all games and software to run on Windows 10, do check out that link in the show notes. Now, Amazon Prime. Amazon are they're like everyone's best friend and everyone's worst enemy at the moment. I'm expecting a 7-inch or 8-inch tablet case to arrive for my daughter later on today, which I ordered yesterday afternoon. And this short time span. I know it's not the same in other parts of the world. In the United States, I think you have 2 days. Here in the UK, everything can be done in 1 day with Amazon Prime. But at the same time, there's all those things happening behind the scenes and vast amounts of money and possibly better working conditions. But Amazon Prime members can now pick an Amazon Day rather than Amazon's Amazon Day. I'm not sure if this is something I mean, there are good security benefits for it, I suppose, but it's not really something that I personally think I'm going to take advantage of. What about you, Megan?
It's definitely something I would use just for a convenience factor, and especially if I was in the US. I mean, I'm not sure if you saw it, the porch thief video that went viral where a guy added the fake package. And that's like a huge problem apparently in the US, where no one's home and the package is just left on the porch, which wouldn't happen here. The Amazon driver just heads back, tries again. But I think in countries where that does happen, you'll end up with a lot fewer stolen packages.
Absolutely. So the idea of Amazon Day is that Amazon lets a Prime member choose 1 day of the week to be their delivery day. Once chosen, you can keep adding eligible items to the order, which will be grouped together and delivered on the day and time of your choosing. As Megan says, this is clearly something that's going to benefit people in the United States more than other parts of the world where delivery is faster. I mean, hopefully it'll work out, and it's a good idea. But of course, Amazon are working towards what they call shipment zero, and dropping things off on the same day by various means that they've tried out. Do you have any preference of for shipment zero? I'm keen on teleportation if they can't get the drone licenses.
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy just the courier knowing my package will arrive safely, but it's because like we as South Africans imagine that if someone tried to send a package here with a drone, someone on the way is definitely going to stop it and get a free gift.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know, just having a very efficient automated system that can match people with the best delivery time as well, I think that will definitely help. Knowing when you're going to be home, because a lot of people know their schedule, but the courier doesn't necessarily know it. And something like, oh, any time between 9 and 5 p.m. is a broad time.
Yes, it is, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of inefficiency. I guess some of the drivers leaving the stuff at the door is why they do that, because they have to get on with other deliveries. But this will definitely help that they're not wasting their time going to places that they can't get into or the person's not home. I think it'll definitely help out with that. And it's just more convenient to know when your package is arriving rather than answering every ring at your doorbell just in case and finding out like it's just like a traveling salesperson or something. I think it's definitely a useful thing. I'm surprised they haven't introduced it sooner, because there's smaller retailers that already have this type of thing. Like in South Africa, there's Woolworths. I know it's a clothing shop in the UK, but here it's a grocery shop as well. Right. And you can select a time slot, usually for free, that they come deliver your groceries and that type of thing, so that you're home and you're ready at the time. And I mean, they don't have nearly as many resources as something like Amazon.
Sure. Yeah, so that's pick your own Amazon Prime Day. Megan, are you a regular watcher of television online?
Yes, I think that's the only television I watch.
There are many different ways to watch television online. Some that you'll have heard of, some that you won't have heard of. What I think is most interesting about this, and colleague Dan Price at MakeYourStuff.com has compiled a list of the 15 best sites to watch TV on your computer over the internet. What's interesting about this, I think, is that almost all of these services, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, Vudu, Xfinity Stream, iTunes, Google Play, Fandango Now, Sling TV, YouTube TV, PlayStation View, DirecTV Now, US TV Now, Pluto TV, and Fubo TV, almost all of these weren't around 6 or 7 years ago when there was websites springing up beaming IPTV all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's like those guys have been completely left behind. With the exception of, say, Pluto TV and US TV Now, they've been completely left behind, and they've basically lost their market share. And it's like they saw the future, but then they ignored the future and just carried on doing their own strange little thing. It's bizarre to me. What's your preferred service, Megan?
Definitely Netflix. But it's a lot to do with availability here. Netflix has the biggest catalog for us. And yeah, I can access a lot of content, like timely content. Amazon Prime's also available here, but there aren't enough exclusives to really make me want to subscribe, because in terms of like calculating like how much value you get for your subscription, you get a lot more from Netflix here, at least, than you do on Amazon Prime. But something like I'm dying, like I really just want Hulu and some other streaming services to just roll out here. Like I would love for like HBO Play, for example, to roll out here. I'm just waiting. And even like YouTube TV and YouTube Premium, it's also geo-locked here. So I'm just waiting. I'm like, please come to our shores so that I may watch all your content.
Well, of course, someone may consider using a virtual, no, they wouldn't, not a virtual machine at all, a virtual private network, a VPN, to get around those issues. Here in the UK, we have a service called Now TV, which includes Sky Atlantic, so you get a lot of HBO stuff through that. I use Amazon Prime Video mainly. In fact, the main reason I have Amazon Prime is actually because of The Man in the High Castle. Which is, as you said, there's more good exclusives on Netflix than there are on Amazon, probably. I mean, I don't spend an awful lot of time watching TV, but Man in the High Castle is a show that I've enjoyed watching over the years. Netflix, again, we have Netflix. I don't know if we have anything on iTunes. I found myself buying more and more on Google Play lately as I've generated
Mm.
more and more bonuses on the Google Rewards app.
Yeah, Google Play is really promising. The only drawback I find is that there's quite a delay until they release a movie. Sometimes like they're really quick on it, and like as soon as it's done in cinemas, the movie's on the platform. But I find especially like older things, I struggle to find, and I don't know if that's a geo restriction. The service is available here, but I mean it took ages for Get Out to come out on Google Play.
Well, I will give you a quick rundown of what I've purchased over the years on Google Play. In fact, Sherlock Holmes, the Robert Downey Jr. Jude Law, I think that was probably free. I've since also bought Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and a couple of days ago I bought Bohemian Rhapsody, which I watched last night, which is obviously a pretty recent movie.
Let me
So
see. I
that's
don't think.
yeah. I mean, it's not. I don't like having to buy stuff this way, to be honest with you, because I feel like I'm slightly. I don't know. I think everyone has that kind of feeling that maybe they're not going to use Google forever, so then buying movies on Google maybe isn't a great idea. But yeah, so yeah, that I mean, obviously, Bohemian Rhapsody is quite a recent movie. I think it probably is. There probably is a geographic element to all of
Mm,
these services as to what you can get hold of, and Fandango is becoming a seems to become more prominent in the past few months with its movie reviews and its new streaming service, Fandango Now, which you pay
yeah.
on a pay-as-you-go basis. One service that is missing from this, which surprised me, is BritBox, which is available in North America and North America, US and Canada for the past few months. It's also going to be launched in the UK. But in the US and Canada, BritBox basically allows you to stream British television. Now, I mentioned VPNs earlier. I've actually used BritBox. I've got a BritBox account because I used it to access a show called Midsummer Murders, which is a British show, but it had been screened in Australia, but not in the UK.
That's
It's
odd.
latest series, yeah. So my wife and I decided, well, we'd really like to watch this. So I used a VPN to set up a BritBox account, watch these, I think 5 or 6 episodes of Midsummer Murders streamed from the United States. I'm not even sure if they've been on in the UK yet, but yeah, there's kind of the UK is like a series behind, and it's kind of odd. But yeah, there you go. So yeah, streaming service. Do you have a favourite streaming service then that you use the
um,
most? Is it Netflix?
yeah, definitely Netflix. I would like to use HBO, but they even with the VPN, I think they can track where your credit card is registered. So with theirs, you can't register for the service without having a kind of foreign credit card because they'll look and be like, oh, this is registered in South Africa according to its number. So sorry, it's not available in your area. And that's a lot to do, like very strict licensing agreements here. I think there's a bit more freedom in other places, but like for example, Netflix was the first like international streaming service to launch here, and they couldn't even play House of Cards or um, Orange is the New Black, which is it's their shows. They made it. They couldn't even air it here in our version because the local broadcasters still had the rights to all of those. So it actually like even if they own the content, they can't stream it here yet
Right.
until all these licensing deals expire.
Oh, that's frustrating, isn't it?
There is a local streaming service, but it used to have quite a bit of delay, so sometimes it would take a while for like Game of Thrones to upload. But I definitely think people are looking for the alternatives. Definitely the VPN solution, even though Netflix tries to nip it in the bud, there are still VPNs that work with it. Same with Amazon Prime. So I think that's a good way to access other content. But yeah, some of the services have built a very, very solid wall between themselves and certain locations.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Let's move on to the Samsung Galaxy S10 series. Megan,
Yes.
you went to the launch, did you?
Yeah, the local launch,
Yeah,
yeah.
of the Galaxy S10. Now, this is not unusual, although I didn't realize this until very recently when I was doing some research into the DEX software on the Samsung Galaxies.
Yes.
Is that Samsung issues multiple versions of the same phone that are slightly different?
Yes. I think especially in the last few years, maybe since the S7, there's been two versions in their Galaxy S range, at least two versions. So a standard version and then the Plus version. But this year Samsung went all out and they suddenly went from two versions to four different phones that they launched and then still bundled it with the announcement of the Galaxy Fold as well.
Now, what I mean, obviously, there's different versions,
Yeah.
four different versions, and I would probably look at this and I would say that's too much choice. And I know
Yeah.
choice is something that people like to believe or think that they like to have, but I would contest that maybe 20 years of the mobile phone or a bit longer demonstrates actually people don't want that much choice. They just want good devices from manufacturers that they can trust. But there is a
Yeah.
reason why Samsung have issued four phones, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think, I mean, they did their whole thing was that okay, we're giving users choice, but I think for them it was a way to roll out a variety of different developments at different price points because they couldn't load it all into one device and make it insanely expensive because the market would not react to it. So they've kind of
Yeah.
had made all these new developments and then bundled them with the different phones. I do like that. I mean, between the S10 Plus and the S10, there's not too much of a difference because I think it was with the S9 and the S9 Plus, there used to always just be a marginal difference in previous versions where it would be like bigger battery, more storage. But then on the S9 and the S9 Plus, one had a single lens camera and the other had a dual camera. And that's quite a big jump, especially when
Mm.
everyone's rolling out dual cameras last year. It was too much of a difference in a way that people didn't want the S9 Plus because it was more expensive, like significantly expensive, but they also didn't want the S9 because it didn't have the camera features they wanted. So this time around, the S10 Plus and the S9, the S10 have more small differences back to the whole battery thing, the whole extra storage, and then the S10 Plus has a dual front camera, but that's only you don't feel kind of robbed if you opt for the S10 instead. It's still got that triple lens main camera, that kind of thing, the main things you'd want in a phone. And then the S10e, it's more, I think, following the pattern of how there was the iPhone XS and then the iPhone XR, like offering a premium budget version that's still much more expensive than their mid-range devices, but it just cuts a few of the bells and whistles of the other devices to make it more accessible in terms of affordability. And that one has a dual main camera, so at least it still has the two lenses there. And then the S10 5G, this is where they just loaded. It's like they all the toppings phone where they just loaded in battery, RAM, a quadruple rear camera, a dual front camera, and then obviously the 5G functionality. But what's interesting about that, I think they definitely separated it because the 5G requires like more battery power. It makes the device more expensive. But by separating it, they could make it that it's like a targeted launch in areas where 5G is relevant.
Yeah.
So the UK mainly, some of Europe, and the US. So the 5G won't be seeing most markets, even with its new cameras and new types of lenses. But I think that was a smart way to not raise the prices of all their phones with a feature that would only be relevant in selected territories.
It's an interesting tactic, and I hope it's a strategy that works out for them. I think though the thing that I find most fascinating about the Samsung Galaxy S10 phones is the fact that they look like they've got faces on them.
Faces.
On the camera side, on the reverse side, where you got those little lines
Uh,
of lenses, and then the little bit that says Samsung underneath.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially the little S10e.
Yeah,
Oh.
the androids are coming to life. So yeah, do you have a preferred model? Do you think is there one that you'd be looking at getting?
Um, like I like the S10 Plus, but I think the S10 would be alright for me because I'm very into smartphone photography. Um, but mainly with regards to the main camera, I don't take many selfies, so I don't need like special live focus in my selfies and that kind of thing. So because the the standard S10 still has the triple rear camera, I think that would be perfect for me. But I mean, some people who want like a very, very heavy performance device, I mean, the S10 Plus can go up to 1 terabyte of storage, um, which I don't think many phones do.
That's a bit, isn't it?
But yeah, it's a lot. It's a very attractive phone. I've got an S10 Plus with me. It's not much bigger than most of the other phones. It's the same size as my Huawei P20 Pro. So in terms of size, it's mainly about what you can afford and what you're looking for in a phone. If you're the kind of person who wants to splash out on a really expensive phone, with all the bells and whistles, the S10 Plus is great. If you're a bit more conservative with it, S10 will be more than enough for most smartphone users. And even the S10e, if you're not that into smartphone photography, you just want a good camera and a good phone, then the cheaper device definitely works. Is there any that you prefer?
Oh, I'm a bit greedy when it comes to phones, so I'd probably just go straight for the 5G. And I don't even live in a region of the UK that's likely to get 5G on rollout either. But I would that's just on the off chance I'm in London and can experience some super fast internet. Yeah, probably that. Listen, you mentioned battery life earlier,
Yeah.
and something that some people have noticed that battery life doesn't appear to be improving even as phones improve. Our colleague Van Vicente has compiled a list of the 5 reasons why phones have such short battery lives. Now, compared to 5, 10 years ago, phones have superb battery lives, but we demand more from our phones these days. So that's really what's going on. It's the demand for faster phones, more powerful phones, thinner phones,
Great displays.
great displays, high definition 4K displays, and better charging speeds, and also the physical element of actually batteries do deteriorate over time. Um, I wonder, what sort of battery life do you get out of your main phone?
More than a day. But I've got very fast charging. I only charge it in like little bits. But I definitely right now I'm still getting over a day's use of it. But it does like I've owned it for a year now, so I see it's not going as far as it used to during due to that normal like degradation. But I'm happy with it. It's like obviously I wish it could go for a week, but I'm not going to be investing in any. What was it? The Energizer phone that's like an inch thick that can last the whole week with 18,000 milliamp hours. And your phone, how's your battery doing?
It tends to be all right. I usually get to bed and it's about 15%. It depends, obviously, on what you're doing throughout the day. I do
Mm,
find that, when I'm tethering, if I'm out and about, then the battery's lower. If I've fallen into the trap of a family shop, I find that the battery goes a lot quicker because I spend time staring at my phone trying to distract myself from the inanity of choosing clothes. Uh, so that happens. Yeah, it depends how I'm using it. A general work day will be I'll have maybe 20-15% left at the end of it, whereas a weekend I'll probably have to bung it on charge through the car or through a battery recharger at some point. Using it for navigation as well on Google Drive or Google Maps Drive.
And have you noticed when it can't find signal, then it really, really drains, because if you've got that like smart Wi-Fi on, it's trying to switch between all the different signals. So I find, especially when I go to a mall or something where I haven't logged into the local Wi-Fi, so it keeps trying to connect to the internet without me giving any verification. So it keeps trying to switch between the data, and that I've never seen something chew my battery as much as that.
Yeah, that is a problem that I thought that they'd actually got over, but it just seemed to be creeping back in for some reason. I don't know whether there's been some changes in with Android particularly in how it connects to Wi-Fi networks. But yeah, I mean, I disabled Wi-Fi a few days ago when I was eating out, and 10 minutes later it was back on. So
oh wow,
yeah, trying to connect to the restaurant Wi-Fi. So yeah, that's a pain. So just to recap, the reasons why your smartphone will not last the entire day in most cases is because modern phones consume energy faster. Phones are getting slimmer and have less space for batteries, so actually your batteries are smaller. Manufacturers don't really have an incentive to add bigger batteries because people want more powerful phones with more features, and battery space is at a premium. Lithium-ion batteries will deteriorate over time, as will almost any battery, and battery technology isn't as advanced as maybe it could be at this stage. Smarter use of your phone and smarter recharging practice is probably the best way to keep your phone topped up. How do you charge your phone? Do you use plug or solar or portable battery? What's your preference?
I mainly just use the standard fast charging on it. Mine currently doesn't have wireless charging. I used to enjoy that, but that does have the risk of causing overheating if you leave it there for too long.
Yeah.
And then power banks are incredibly useful when you're on the go. And you even get wireless power banks nowadays. But yeah, I mainly, the fast charging in bursts as well. I try to keep it between 30 and 80%, just because of a report I read from Battery University. Your phone just uses your battery more efficiently between those two spaces, like between those two percentages. So
sure.
You don't have to charge it as much, because the main thing, there's not like a whole bunch of like, 80% is like, the limit, and then it gets too hot. Like, it does get too hot at 100%, but your phone just doesn't use it as efficiently. So just saving battery prevents you from having to charge it again and using up all those charge cycles that the lithium-ion battery is limited to.
Sure, good advice. I used to have a Windows phone that had wireless charging, which I absolutely loved. You can just put it on the plate, wait for it to charge, then pick it up again. Although it also invariably ends up extremely hot. But my Xperia has fast charging on USB Type C, so it's probably charged within about an hour, which is obviously preferable. It's not always, but I mean, during the if I put it on charge during the night, it'll tell me when it's going to be charged by, which I think is a really useful feature in Android.
That is very useful, that you don't end up leaving it too long.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So let me just recap where we are up to. I think, I'm going to go back and just give you a quick recap there, ladies and gentlemen, of what we discussed in this week's really useful podcast. We've talked about how to make old games and software run on Windows 10. We've discovered the benefits of Prime members being able to pick their Amazon Day. There are the best tools for you and services to watch TV on your computer. Big names that you'll know, other names that you maybe don't know so well. We've explored the Galaxy S10 launch and its Samsung's 4 devices, all called S10, and why, and the benefits of each. And we've had a look at why phones have perhaps a shorter battery life that maybe you expect. This is the Really Useful Podcast. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher.com, and there's probably one or two other places that I've forgotten to mention. Oh, and YouTube as well. We are the podcast for technophobes. If you found anything interesting in this week's podcast, please share it. Let us know. Tell your friends. And if you know people who are afraid of technology, aren't getting the most out of technology, and want some help but don't want to have to put up with people talking about frequencies and storage limits and Intel and AMD and all this complicated stuff that really isn't relevant to you as a user, then point them in our direction, and if they have any questions, we can help them out. Megan Ellis is a colleague of mine from makeuseof.com. Thank you for joining me, Megan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been great. It's been a pleasure. We'll be back with another really useful podcast next week. Until then, it's goodbye.
Cheers.